If I had to summarize day 3, I would say it set us up for a very exciting day 4.
I've been to myself, just me lately. I don't need a lot, no. Just me and the fam, few friends ain't playing, I don't speak a lot. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. I'm that cash money getter, big showstopper. 4 kids having, no chain rocker. Make my business, work my business, count them digits.
Headed in for day 3 of the competition, and we are getting started with that 5K. And I think the men and the women are starting at the same time. It's a little bit hard to get video of a 5K, but we'll get the start, we'll get the finish, and we'll talk about who does well and how it impacts the leaderboard. I imagine someone like Emma Lawson will do well in this event, could still be wearing the leader jersey after this. Roman, I'm a little less sure about, because I think there's some men in that field who could sort of be home run hitters on this event. Same thing with women, but I think Emma Lawson's pretty good at it too, so she could have a top 5, top 10 finish. Roman, I'm not sure, so we shall see. Although he likes the hard work, the grunt work, you can make a 5K hard if you want to go really hard. So it should be interesting.
10 toes down, I'm around with the gang. My whole life I've been doing my thing. Get that money, ain't no thing. Anything I do for the gang. 10 toes down, I'm around with the gang. My whole life I've been doing my thing. Get that money, ain't no thing. Anything I do for the gang. Anything I do for the gang. Took those L's and I took that blame. All money in, we ain't copping no chain. Feel like Ice Cube, cause a dead good day. Don't need 3 whips, don't need no race. I'ma keep it simple in the Chevy I skate. Thank the Lord every time I wait. Lace my shoes and I get to that cake. Heads up, I'm coming. This is all we ever wanted.
Adler, Jeffrey Adler taking second.
Justin Menace and Noah Olsen in a foot race. Let's go, Uncle Bill. Henrik looking over his shoulder. He's the only athlete racing towards that end zone. But here's the 5K.
CrossFit Games rookie, first ever event win. You got a big smile on your face. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Like looking the events they released, that was the one I knew exactly what I can do, and I knew what other athletes can do, so it had to be this one or no one, I think.
Yesterday with the run, we watched you every time try to edge out Pat Vellner. And at that moment, I think people knew that they might be placing bets on you here today. What kind of motivation did that lead going into this event?
The runs felt like too conservative, and I knew like the range of motion with the dumbbell snatches, they are too light, and if you accelerate you take no reps, so I think if you turn that event around and finish with a run, then it would be a different scenario, because then you can catch up in the run. Now it's like you do the run and you know I will lose ground on the smaller athletes. So this motivated me even more to show what I can today.
How do you like being here?
I love it. I want to stay.
Okay, we'll see you later. Thanks, Ella.
Thanks.
Nice work, man.
Before we talk about the 5K, I would like to show you this insanely Wisconsin background I have behind me. That's a giant cow. This is a smaller cow with a piece of cheese on its head, and I think it's a cheese sun. So this is like the definition of Wisconsin. Let's get into the 5K though. That was pretty interesting. Most exciting part of that, I think, is that Roman Krennikov finished in 3rd, and I was surprised. He was out in the front at first, and I was like, oh no, did Roman come out too hot? Is he gonna blow up and not be able to hold on? But surprisingly, he stayed with the lead pack and must have, started to really push it near the end, because he was like in 5th with a pack of 5 and ended up coming in 3rd, sprinting to the finish. Looked really solid. He's usually more of like a shorter workout person, but he likes the grindy workouts. So I thought as a big athlete, he might not do as well, but he he did well. In first, though, another big athlete, more big and long, though, Yellow Hoste. He won. You just heard from him. He's a rookie, first event win, so pretty big deal for Yella, and he's in the top 10 right now. He's sitting in 6th. So to go over your top athletes for the men, still got Roman Krennikov in first, although now it's less than 100 points that separates him from second, who is Jeffrey Adler. Third is Chandler Smith, still staying in that podium position. Jade Crouch in 4th, Brent Fikowski in 5th, Yella Hoste in 6th, BKG in 7th, Pat Vellner in 8th, Lazar in 9th, and 10th is Bailey Martin. Let's scroll down just to see Justin Medeiros is sitting in 15th. So I think he still has a good shot of getting into the top 10, maybe by the end of the day, depending on what happens with the events, although I don't think he's going to do much more this year than top 10. Let's go over the women if I can get this to load. Got it. So in first, we still have Emma Lawson, but her lead has shrunk quite a bit. And in second, we have Alexis Raptis, who was in first for a while this weekend and is now back in that top 3. Second, only, it looks like, about 7 points behind Emma Lawson. In third, you have Ariel Lowen, who did really well on that run event. So first in that run was Emily Rolfe. She's sitting in 7th overall, and she was way ahead of the rest of the field. I was just waiting to see another woman after she did her first lap, and then after she came in for the win. Ariel Lowen, I think, may have been second behind her or close to it, so she did really well on that run, putting her in a podium position. Laura Horvath is in 4th, didn't do super hot on the run, but still in a good position, and only about 40 some points out of first place, so still looking solid. In 5th, we have Alex Kazan. 6th, Bethany Flores, who has been impressive all weekend. 7th, like I mentioned, Emily Rolfe. 8th, Jamie Simmons, who's looked very good too. 9th is Gabby Magala, and Katrin Davidsdottir has made herself into the top 10 in that 10th place position. Annie Thorsdottir didn't do super well on the run. I expected a little bit more of her, although when I think back to other running events, like the Murph event that we had back in Carson, where she overheated, it's not super shocking to see that she didn't do fantastic on this run and is now in 12th place overall, but she has 403 points in 12th, and the podium is 524, so it's a little bit difficult, but she was in a top 5 position prior to this past event, so things change really quickly. It'll be interesting to see how she continues to do the rest of the weekend. I had high hopes for her being on the podium, and she looked pretty good. This last event just kind of crushed her, but we still have at least, I would say, 5 more events, 2 more today, and I would guess 3 more tomorrow. We don't actually know what kind of events we have tomorrow or how many, so she may have lots of opportunities to get back to that podium. We'll see. And other than that, I think a lot of this is what we'd expect it to be. I did see that Kelly Baker was out on the 5K, and I think that's because Ellie Turner pulled out. They let her, Kelly Baker, who was in 31st, continue in the top 30, which is pretty cool to see. watched event 8 intervals, and it was super exciting. 2 Canadians just absolutely put on a show, and that is Emma Lawson on the women's side. No one was even close to her. And then Pat Vellner on the men's side. Pat walked in, like slowly walked in at the end of the event because he had so much time to spare. He didn't have to race to get across the finish line. So super impressed with both of those athletes because I was worried for both of them after the first interval that they went out too hot, that they were going to just sort of peter out on the second one, because we did see that. Annie Thorsdottir went out really hot on her first interval, and she was caught by Emma Carey on her second interval. So watching Emma Lawson go shortly after her, I was worried we were going to see a repeat of the same thing. Nope. Emma Lawson got ahead and stayed ahead, allowing her to extend her lead as the top athlete overall right now. She's up on Ariel Lowen in second, and she's up by about 30, almost 40 points. So really impressed by the 18-year-old. I feel like everyone was focused on Mal O'Brien being this young, up-and-coming athlete until she decided to pull out for the year. And Emma Lawson just looking fantastic. She didn't do as well at semis as I think a lot of us thought she was going to. And because of that, many of us didn't really put her on our podium. But she's looking really good. And it's day 3. We only have probably 4 more events to go, and she's starting to get a bit of a lead. In third, we have Alexis Raptis. Fourth, Laura Horvath, still definitely within striking distance of, the first spot, but starting to create some space, Emma Lawson. But Laura, I would still expect to see Laura on the podium. I think this next event, the Olympic total, is going to be very, very good for her. I'm interested to see how this total sort of shakes up our leaderboard a little bit, because there's a couple people down lower who are actually below the cut line, who are people I think could do really well on this next event. So we have Olivia Kerstetter in 21st. I'm gonna guess she's in the top 20 after the Olympic total. She's only 5 points out of 20th, and she's freaking strong. So keep your eyes on Olivia Kerstetter, which you probably already know what happened by the time you're seeing this, but if you don't and you're just watching this as a recap because you didn't watch on Saturday, keep your eyes on Kerstetter. She's definitely someone lower that could do really well here and make a big difference. Amanda Barnhart has a shot of making up a lot of points here. She is, it looks, about 60 points out of 20th, but there's a lot of people I think she could do better than here. Kelly Baker, I'm not really sure about her strength. Would be awesome to see if she can make it through the second rounds of cuts after making it into this round after someone else pulled out. So that could certainly be interesting. Christine Kohlenbrander is probably one of the strongest in the field. She is in 29th right now, but she is still only 253 to 320, so about less than 70 points out of the 20th spot. I mean, that's possible. Not likely, but possible. So it will be interesting to see how this all goes down. Annie Thorsdottir has brought herself up to 11th after a 7th place finish in the intervals. I think she could do well on the weightlifting event tonight too. So, and by tonight I mean like in 20 minutes. I think the timing of this event has a lot to do with ESPN and when ESPN can put it on. So the usual late night Olympic lifting is happening in the middle of the afternoon. Let's move over to the men's side and take a look at that. Oh, 1 second. But I do think that Emma Lawson is fairly strong for her size. I just don't know how she's going to compare to the field. But she has some space to play with. On the men's side, I'm not entirely sure if this is updated. The scores are in, but it looks like Roman Krennikov is still like the same number of points ahead as he was prior. So possibly it's not totally updated, but that was Roman's worst finish, the interval workout, out of any of the workouts, finishing in 20th Pat Vellner. He got a first place finish for that. It says he's in 8th. I have to be honest, I don't think that these numbers right now while I'm doing this, because it just ended, are completely updated. So it'll be interesting to see how this all looks in a little bit. But really great finish for Pat. It's gonna keep him in the top 10, if not move him up a little bit. And overall, just that was like the big takeaway of that workout, was Pat is insanely fit still, despite being one of the oldest athletes in the fields. And he knew this was his workout. He was like calling his shot, riling up the crowd. He definitely knew it going in, and it was fun to watch. And it'll be fun to watch Pat lift. It's gonna be interesting to see how this final event impacts the final cuts.
To myself, just me lately. I don't need a lot. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been to myself, just me lately. I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot. No, just me and the fam, few friends ain't playing. I don't speak a lot, and I can't stop. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. I'm that cash money getter, big show stopper. 4 kids having no chain rocker. Make my business, work my business. Count them digits, earn them winnings. I see you in my review and you been trying. Said you out here doing numbers but you been lying. And you know my little baby been fine. In the crib, bet she do it for the 9-9. I've been to myself, just me lately. I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot, no. Just me and the fam, few friends ain't playing. I don't speak a lot. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. I don't gotta say too much. My bros know the deal, they think I play too much. Never miss a miss, yeah, I've been scraping up. Life been moving faster, you should pray for us. Just got a text, so I hit. I don't need designer fits, but I'ma be me all day. And you can't get in my way. You can't get in my way. I'ma be me all day. I'ma be me all day. And you can't get in my way. I've been to myself, just me lately. I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot, no. Just me and the fam, few friends ain't playing. I don't speak a lot. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. And I can't stop. And I can't stop.
I am doing this against a really boring white wall, but you know, the lighting isn't bad because there's a window right here. We are going to wrap up day 3 of individual competition at the CrossFit Games, and it was a pretty exciting day. If I had to summarize day 3, I would say it set us up for a very exciting day 4. So if we take a look at the women's leaderboard, and we'll talk a little bit about the 9th event, which was the Olympic total, as we look at the leaderboard. In first place, we still have Emma Lawson, and she has done really well all weekend. She's a smaller athlete and still managed to get 7th place in the Olympic total, which I expected. She's very strong for her size, so wasn't shocked to see her do well there. But I wouldn't have been shocked to see her get more of like a 10th or a 12th place. So 7th, really great, and it kept her in that first place position. We did see some movement though from Laura Horvath, who easily won that Olympic lifting event. She didn't have to take her last lift, I'm pretty sure. I think she had won it before her final clean and jerk, and then she threw like 20 more pounds on the bar just for fun to see if she could, you know, hit something even heavier. So she is in first place with a total of 470. Her clean and jerk was 265, I believe, and then her snatch was 205. Just insane how easy that clean still looked. She did 20 pounds less first, 245 for her first clean and jerk, and it looked like there was no weight on the bar. So happy to see her go up a big amount, but she didn't even need to. She would have won that event. So now she is in second, and a fairly comfortable second. So if we look at the point spread, Emma Lawson is in first with 729. Laura Horvath is in second now, 681. I believe she was in fourth before this event. And Ariel Lowen, who I believe was in second before this, is now in third with 668, but she still did fairly well as another smaller athlete, 13th on the Olympic total, which is what I thought Emma Lawson would do about, but you know, 7th, that's really solid. Emma Lawson could be your CrossFit Games champ, and like based on her performance so far, she deserves it. Anyway, let's go down the leaderboard a little bit farther. We have Alexis Raptis in fourth, Gabby Magala in fifth. She had a pretty good Olympic lifting event. She finished in fifth. Alex Gazan in sixth. She did really well in the clean and jerk. Her snatch, I think it's just a confidence technique thing because she has the strength, but she does not have the numbers on the snatch. Annie Thorsdottir did fairly well in the Olympic total, finishing in 13th. And one of my favorite parts of that event was watching her and Katrin Davidsdottir interact. They were hyping each other up, hugging each other after their lifts. They have a really special relationship, and it was awesome to see that on the floor in an event that allowed for that kind of interaction. 8th is Emma Carey, 9th is Emma Tall. Emma Carey's really made some moves to get back into the top 10 after she started out the weekend with a 40th place finish, and then she had a 39th on the alpaca redo. So pretty impressed to see Emma Carey make her way up the leaderboard. Emma Tall, I said, in 9th, and Katrin Davidsdottir is in 10th, which is where she was before the Olympic total event, I believe. So in the same spot, but Annie is a daughter who made some big jumps on that Olympic total. Doesn't look like she's got a great chance of making it onto the podium. Looking at your podium finishers right now, they are in the mid 600s, and Emma Lawson in 700s, and Annie Thorsdottir is 531. So while it's not impossible with 3 events probably left, it looks like it might be a challenge, which is disappointing. But, you know, it happens. Another person that had a really good Olympic total was Olivia Kerstetter, who was in 21st before the event and made her way into 17th, so she was not cut. The 17-year-old in 17th will be making her way to the final day of competition. Some big names that were cut: Christine Kohlenbrander, who finished second on the Olympic lifting behind Laura Horvath, just wasn't enough to get into day 4. Then we have Amanda Barnhart, who finished 4th. Again, another good lifting event, but there just wasn't enough. She didn't have enough room to make her way up the leaderboard to stay in it. Sydney Wells out, Bailey Rail out. But I think the people that are still in it are mostly people who we expected. Only a couple that I think are people that are surprising to lose, like Amanda Barnhart, I would say, is the most surprising to not have moving on to the final day. But based on the weekend, a little less surprising, but going into the weekend, I think people would have expected her in the top 20. Let's move over to the men. So Roman Krennikov, who has had a pretty solid lead for most of the weekend, it almost felt like it was out of the realm of possibilities for anyone else to win this competition, is now in a little bit of trouble. He's only up 13 points on Jeff Adler. So this is still very much a race for first place. I believe he went into today 105 points in the lead, more than a whole event in the lead, or about 100 points. Now he had a 3rd place finish today, which was good, but then a 17th and a 16th. The 2 last events, intervals and Olympic total, were his worst 2 events of the weekend. And while he could afford it because he's still in first, it's made things a lot closer. So Roman Krennikov 13 points ahead of Jeff Adler for first place. Jeff is in second, who everyone was really high on, or a lot of people were really high on going into this year. Looking pretty good going into the final day. And Chandler Smith in third, who I think is still a little bit surprising to a lot of people. He missed the games last year, and this year he's in a podium spot. So I'm interested to see how this final day plays out for him. He is only 16 points ahead of Pat Vellner, who has been making a charge up the leaderboard. He won intervals and then had a solid 12th place finish in the Olympic lifting event. He did miss his first snatch. He made it on a second attempt in the same window, so he didn't really miss it, but I guess he was probably just cold from standing in the warm-up area or standing in the corral waiting to go. Fifth, we have Brent Fikowski, who actually missed his first snatch and recorded a 0 for his first attempt of 2, and then hit his second one and ended up not mattering. But you could see he was a little bit frustrated by that. And he got 8th on the Olympic total, which not bad. Jay Crouch in 6th. He's been in that top 10 all weekend, even in the top 3 at times. So I think a 6th is more of where I'd expect him to finish at this point than making his way back into the top 3. Then we have Bailey Martin, who's looked really good all weekend, and BKG, who is an interesting one because he took a 4th in intervals and then a 30th in the Olympic total. He put 95 on the bar and he snatched that and he clean and jerked that, and that was it. So some concerns there. He did make the cut still. He's still in the top 10. I just wonder if something is really hurt where he's not going to be able to overcome it, or if something is hurting and he doesn't want to injure it more. So I think only time will tell what it looks like tomorrow, and we'll see if BKG has another top 10 run. If he doesn't, it's because of an injury that we don't really know a lot about yet. And it's just interesting because 4th in the event prior and then a 30th, and we didn't see anything happen. Like, he started with 95. He didn't seem to get hurt, where like someone like Jamie Simmons, I think hyperextended her shoulder, or elbow, I mean, and if that was bothering her tomorrow, it wouldn't be surprising. We just really don't know what's going on with BKG. Lazar's in 9th. 10th is Yellow Hoste, who's been hanging around the top. The Olympic total was not his jam, you could tell, and he finished in 28th. But that's probably the only like really heavy lifting event we have, at least only lifting event that's just lifting. So maybe he can continue to climb up the top 10 or stay in the top 10. Dallin Pepper is in 11th. He did really well in the total. Let's scroll down and see who we lost. Some notable names that we've kept: Spencer Panchek, Justin Medeiros, Colton Mertens, Noah Olson, Nick Matthews, Sam LeQuant. So a lot of good guys stayed. A lot of guys that we'd expect to be in the top 20, still in the top 20. So names that we might expect to be there that we've lost: Samuel Cornwallier. I think a lot of people expected him to be a top 10 athlete. He's done for the weekend. James Sprague, I don't know if people expected him to win or, you know, make it to the top 20, but I think there's a lot of people that were hopeful for it, and he's not going to be continuing on. Luke Parker is gone. Jack Farlow, but Jack Farlow was very impressive on the Olympic lifting event. Both Jack Farlow and Bronislaw were both the first and second place in the Olympic lifting event, and now we're gone, but we're really impressive in that event. So we are set up for a really exciting day 4. I can't wait to see what happens. I feel like there's a lot of questions, and many of the years we didn't have any questions, right? Like Matt Fraser would go in with a big lead, we'd know he would win. Tia had big leads all the time, and we knew who was going to win going into the final day, or had a good idea of who it was going to be. I feel like everyone is vulnerable. The women's side might be a little bit more solid, like Laura and Emma Lawson ending up on the podium in some placements seems like a pretty safe bet. But what positions and who else on the podium can be a pretty big question. Men's side, I think it's also similar. Like, I'd be surprised if Roman didn't end up on the podium at this point, but like Jeff could catch him. So we will see. There could be some shuffling. There could be some big surprises. So get ready for a really exciting day 4. All right, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.